Right.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting of the Public Health and Safety Standing Committee meeting of Tuesday, April 8th to order. Minutes.
Weren't they wonderful?
They were lovely. Does that mean that you would say move to accept them?
Oh, yes, move to accept.
I accept.
All right, so the meeting are good. I don't see the police chief here today, so he must be doing what he does.
Well, there's an ambulance down at the Community Foundation, so I don't know if there's anything going on. But when I was walking here, there's an ambulance with the lights on right across from the post office in front of the
Wow.
community or the hair salon, or no, it's not a hair salon anymore. It's a lawyer's office, but whatever.
Okay,
We
well,
did get the, report in, including some additional breakdown. It did not come in before the package went out on Friday, but it is up online, so.
Okay.
I got that text about 10 o'clock last night. I was watching the basketball game, and I wasn't,
Which text?
there's a text from you or Jody about a meeting.
Oh, that was, it was about 9 o'clock, and it was an accident. I didn't see you, I know Sandy was in that one, actually.
That's the special
Was
meeting
sending a
on
link to my
Thursday
wife,
at
and then I had
5:30.
to explain it just.
Well, I'm still in the air, but I'll talk to you later about that.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's look at 941 amended. This is the one regarding dumpsters, where all we added was e-dumpsters. And it says they must have proper and functional lids and be closed and secure at the end of the day to protect against the accidental dispersal of solid waste. Attractants must be stored in a bear-resistant dumpster and remain closed at all times when not being used to dispose of waste. I think I sent that email to everybody regarding the guy up on the golf course.
Yep.
Brett? Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's interesting because it's not as simple as dumpsters. There are trailers. I know.
But do trailers stay stationary for a month, will they?
I think contractors do.
They also come with nets.
They should come with nets and be covered.
I have one that came with a net.
Should we say, should we?
Construction trailers, what, I saw those pictures. What else besides a trailer did he send? I
think there are pretty much
that was it?
different kinds of things you tow behind your vehicle, which would be trailers.
Right.
Well, dump trailers are designed for debris.
Once you're driving them, but not when they're parked.
Well, on a construction site, you're throwing debris in it, right? You're throwing construction materials and then you haul it somewhere, and it has to have a cover to haul.
To haul. The problem that we're
So
having.
you need to put it on and off. The roofers at my house put the cover on every day before they left, so that the wind didn't blow it out. So
I
it's
think
not unreasonable to ask them to have a cover on their dump trailer.
I know when Spires was being built, the things that blew out of the trailer was old, insulation, because it's lightweight. So during the day, all that stuff would blow out of their trailer. And that's what we're trying to avoid with dumpsters as well,
Right.
is to make sure, because you can't say that they, were.
Well, the trailers should have a tarp or net with them, because if they leave it there one day and they go down the road, it has to be covered.
Right.
So it's no
But what about
inconvenience
during
to-
the day?
Well, it's a better condition.
I think
I
we
don't know
said at 5 o'clock, or when they recover, but they don't have to be covered all day when they're working. That's so inconvenient. Just start throwing roofing material in. That's like,
You know, if there's windy conditions, then it would make sense to have a cover. But how much do you want to legislate every action,
Every possible
and every
outcome?
possible outcome?
You
absolutely.
can't,
Yeah.
not effectively. So I think if you include trailers with dumpsters, I think it'd be okay.
Yeah.
What if we, said e-dumpsters and trailers?
Construction, dumpsters, and trailers.
There you go. That's all
Well,
you need.
Part of it, but part of that is that they're resistant for attractants, so it's not necessarily construction.
Are people using trailers for trash? I mean, for waste and
Oh, yeah,
where?
well,
Um,
behind every single,
Well, it's a dumpster. But
Should we just call them large dumpsters rather than construction dumpsters? Or commercial dumpsters, or what's the catch-all? I'm gonna go close this door because they're starting the,
upstairs.
construction upstairs.
the construction trailers may be a separate line item.
Well, what if we took out the bear-resistant dumpster out of this? Okay, and we label it, dumpsters and construction trailers. Or construction dumpsters and trailers.
That's fine, let's just go with
this
that.
is, we get so Twitter pages
Yeah,
about
yeah, I know,
things.
this is where we
Like,
stall down and don't do
not
nothing, so
gonna-
just make it construction, dumpsters and trailers. And go from there.
So we'll read construction dumpsters and trailers, and colon, all construction dumpsters and trailers must have proper functional lids and be closed and secure at the end of the day. Because I think that Jody came back and said it doesn't have to be solid. We didn't say it had to be solid. It could be tarped
Or fenced.
or whatever,
Yeah,
but, I think functional lids
Functional is beautiful.
yep.
Sounds like a lawyer.
and closed. Yeah, exactly.
Look, that's good.
Okay, good.
I think I stole that from Billy.
That's all right.
You did. And 910 amended is the snow ordinance. And, Dennison suggested that I type in the entire ordinance and cross off those things we're taking out, which was the exemption, from the requirement, from the traffic circle north.
Right.
And we also took out the penalty for noncompliance and simply changed it to penalties for noncompliance will be set by resolution of the city council. So those were the two changes that I proposed.
I think that works.
What do you
Yep,
think?
I'm agreeing.
Okay. I thought that one would be easy. Now, when we came to the animal control,
We decided that no one can have a dog in town.
okay, I had a really hard time. I'm not a word person. And when I copied it from one document into this document, it kept cutting it off and not letting me fill the page. So somebody who knows more about words than me.
Maybe that was a sign from God.
I didn't want to do it. I really didn't want to do it. So what I did is I copied the current ordinance and then color coordinated the things I took out and the things I added in. And obviously, the first whereas I added and 2014. Because there was another amended in 2014.
Right.
I didn't change anything in the second whereas, and the third whereas, I changed dogs to pets, animals to pets, dogs to animals, and we talked about, because I kept saying injured persons or other animals be held accountable. I kept saying responsible, and we zapped accountable, made it responsible. Ann and I spent hour and a half
Hour and a half.
on going through this. So, what we're changing is Articles A and B, which was animal control and dogs, and we repealed the entirety, repealed the whole thing and started over. So then I started copying from the original. Instead of having animals must be attended, we changed it to leashed. Everybody thinks there's a leash law. No, it says attended. So we felt that leashed was
That's better.
better. running at large, I think that, trying to see what changes, I should have printed out in color, since I played with it with color. I don't think we changed anything on A. And on B, we pretty much wiped it out. So we took out, keeping within the city limits prohibited, it is hereby made and declared unlawful and a nuisance for any hogs, cattle, sheep, swine, chickens, turkeys, ducks, geese, or other domestic fowl to be kept within the city of Red Lodge. Nuisance, blah, 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 and changed it to household pets as well as horses, and I guess I lost it from there. Darn. But it was, horses, mules, and foals, because those are the three that are allowed. We thought that it was easier to say what was allowed as opposed to try to make a list of what isn't allowed, because then there's gonna be something in there, it doesn't have camels,
Right.
you know.
Orangutan, wasn't an orangutan in the list?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, monkeys, monkeys.
No
were-
monkey families at all. So we felt that it was, much smarter to say what is allowed. I'm gonna have to look at that thing again. God, I hate words, sorry. Horrible program. And then fencing and area regulations. I'm trying to see, oh, here it is. We took out goat. Everywhere we turned, we took out goat. It is unlawful for any person to keep or maintain any horse, mule, or colt within a radius of 50 feet of any dwelling or business house, or business, house, other than that occupied by the person owning said horse, mule, or colt. And it shall be unlawful for any person to keep or maintain any stable, barn, or feeding area for any horse, mule, or colt within a radius of 100 feet of any dwelling or business house. What is this business house? I don't know, I copied it. Other than that occupied by the person owning such horse, mule, or colt. I'm having trouble with colt and goat. And desiring to maintain a stable buffer and, or lot area. So we just basically took out goat. B was fencing requirements, and what we did in there, is it described a fence, a two-pole fence constructed in such a manner that it will contain horses, mules, and foals and goats. And I changed it to fencing as required in the zoning regulations, because they address that
Yep,
very specifically.
that's good.
Not even as simple as fencing, but it's very involved. So I just went fencing as required in the zoning regulations shall be considered a legal fence for the purpose of this chapter. And back again, it is unlawful for any person to keep any horse, mule, or foal within. Now, we do foal or colt. Isn't foal,
Well, a foal is a foal has,
Well, it's a baby, and
Is
it
a
can be a
baby.
filly or a colt.
a colt can be a colt till 2 years, but I don't think a foal can be for 2 years, right?
well, I don't know the difference between foal and goat and colt. I thought a colt was a boy,
A colt and a filly is generally how you distinguish between,
and a foal is
Baby foals.
generic.
yeah.
So we're gonna need to change colt to foal.
How long is a foal? I'll find out before tonight.
Actually, the zoning regulation has that in there too.
Right.
Because a foal can only be kept for a length of time
Right,
before it's considered a horse.
Gotcha. Okay.
Even though it looks like a horse,
But a horse is a horse.
eats like a horse.
I agree.
Offensive premises for keeping livestock, inclusive of chickens. All we did is, there was a word in there, I'm gonna try and say that, violative.
Violative.
It says, so
In
as to
violation.
be offensive to nuisance and violative of this chapter. We changed it to in violation.
Thank you.
Yeah, we thought, let's just say what it is.
Yep.
It was really annoying. And the other weird thing that was in here was, it's a long sentence, any other animal in such a filthy or unsanitary condition so as to be offensive to neighbors or other persons or injurious to the health of the neighborhood. I'm trying to figure out how you can injure a neighborhood. And we changed that, or injurious to the health of the animal shall be guilty of maintaining a nuisance and in violation of this chapter.
Is there a definition to,
Neighborhood?
well, you get your, overzealous neighbor that doesn't like anything. Does that give them the right to,
It says so as to be offensive to neighbors or other
some
persons.
neighbors can be offended by very little.
Yeah, I know. It's something that we don't have to deal with,
And I
it's
think
something
the
that chief
injurious
does.
is probably saying if you're gonna impact property values within the neighborhood, but I don't know how you prove or.
Yeah. And we thought we'd like to have it injurious to the health of the animal. And it seems to me we heard something about, didn't we have that discussion, that it wasn't our job to take care of the animals or something? I thought I had, maybe that was when Jody was on this committee. Because there are state laws that cover that. Anyway,
So it wasn't, we don't care, it's just that there's state laws that already exist.
yeah. So this is what it says. Anyone who shall, within the city limits, keep or maintain any pen, enclosure, stable, or building for horses, mules, or foals, or any other animal in such a filthy or unsanitary condition so as to be offensive to neighbors or other persons or injurious to the health of the neighborhood shall be guilty of maintaining a nuisance and in violation of this chapter. So when we heard that, or injurious to the health of the neighborhood, we changed neighborhood to animal.
I think they're two different things, as Dave said. One is affecting property values. That would be the neighborhood.
I guess it would, and it, you know, it could. So then we'll go back to neighborhood
Yeah,
and that animal,
Yep.
because animals are covered. Okay, under wild animals, A, it had a big, long list of everything, including monkeys. Wild animals are defined as those animals listed below but not limited to said list. And then there was a big, long list, and at the end it said, or any other undomesticated animals. And we added such as feral cats. So we just added feral cats to the list of a wild animal. And I like that it's undomesticated animals. And that might give the judge some leeway there that it's clearly stated that it's a wild animal because it's not domesticated. The problem that we have, the guy over on Platt, is he says they're pets, but they're not domesticated. It's like, go pick up one of those cats.
Just because he's feeding them doesn't mean they're domesticated.
That's the point. That's the point. And I think, so he always had this undomesticated animals. We strengthened it by saying such as feral cats.
that's good.
Any
Yeah,
problem?
I think that's the only relationship he has with them is feeding them. I mean, you know.
That is.
Yeah, so it's,
He can't pick them up.
yeah,
No.
so,
Under prohibited, I don't think we made any changes to that paragraph. Oh, maybe we did. No, we didn't. Offenses, what we did here was it's unlawful for persons to keep, house, provide, feed, supplemental or otherwise, or maintain any wild animal within city limits as provided by this section. I'm wondering if we should say maintain any wild animal or wild or undomesticated animal. Let me read it again. It's unlawful for persons to keep, house, provide food, supplemental or otherwise, or maintain any wild animal within city limits as provided by this section. Should we add wild animals or undomesticated?
Would a lot of that be already addressed by the state of Montana and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks?
The wild animals would, but this gives it a little more strength. Actually, I don't know, we've seen people,
You can get permits for certain animals.
we've seen people do that with baby deer, where they
But
start feeding them,
Generally, those deer are destroyed once Fish and Game gains
Finds out.
knowledge that those animals have been domesticated.
Well, this is under offenses, and then it describes the first offense and what's gonna happen, second offense.
But the wildlife, the fence would be under the jurisdiction of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and they're pretty territorial about their regulations.
They certainly are. Well, we haven't run this past the lawyer yet here, Dennison.
The other thing I would add, if I may, is my recollection is the trigger for starting this was police and judge, make sure it addresses it. So if they said, yes, this addresses their concerns, or have we not yet addressed them? Because if that was the triggering catalyst,
change
we
this.
ought to make sure we address it, or we haven't accomplished the objective.
Well, the first objective was to say that it isn't a dog ordinance. It's an animal ordinance, not just, even though they had a ton of that. And then all I did under offenses, it says for the first offense, a written warning will be issued, subsequent offenses will be fined as set by resolution of the city council.
Right.
Because we didn't want that in there. Well, let's run it by and we'll see what they say. Exemption, of course, is Yellowstone Wildlife. Bird feeders are exempt to the provisions of this section, provided that the bird feeders are not installed and operated for the purpose of providing supplemental feed to any of the animals described in subsection A of this section. I think that people put out bird feeders to attract bears.
Really?
Yeah, didn't we have that discussion?
No, we discussed that we don't like it and it's bullshit, but people gotta see their birds.
I honestly think they do it to attract the bears.
I take them in at night, but what about all this on the
They
ground?
never take them in at night,
That's what they say, that's what they say.
and they do attract bears.
Well, anyway, we can't do anything about it. People love their birds.
I don't have a copy in front of that, but I think, didn't you, this is an ordinance or code, and you said there's an exemption of Yellowstone Wildlife. Do we want to make that more generic, so like if there was another rescue that was created, it doesn't require an ordinance change? Is it like
It is an ordinance.
a sanctioned rescue operation, or I don't know? How do you make it so that it's future-proof?
It's never future-proof.
Sanctioned and, rehab and rehabilitation.
Yeah.
So the Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary, or any,
Well, you replace it with the generic that includes Yellowstone Wildlife
sanctuary or animal refuge?
But
Not,
You want to say, but what you could say is, so they have to, they're approved by, like, FDA or some federal body, because what you don't want to do is have somebody down the street say, I'm a cat refuge, I'm a fish, but if it's an FDA or whatever the federal body is, recognized sanction, then that's a more generic description.
but a refuge, to me, sounds like the animals are gonna stay there. And we don't wanna encourage cats staying anywhere. Rehab, rehabilitation, but if it's a refuge, it's permanent.
Well, the YWS is an animal refuge, and the animals do stay there, but I would say, but they're certified by
Yeah, they got a lot of
Fed
room.
as such.
But in my house, I won't have room for a refuge. I don't know.
But you're not sanctioned as such either.
What if I wanted to be?
There's a whole bunch of federal, that's what I'm saying, if you go with the federal hoops and registration,
Okay,
I'm gonna call, YWS and ask who gave them permission to be a sanctuary?
yeah, which Fed thinks they have to be that.
Yeah. Okay, so we did bird feeders. now our chapter on dogs with all the definitions. We did change, vicious dog. This is the problem that the judge had, the difference between a vicious dog and a, what was the other one? Vicious.
Vicious, aggressive, and there were three that he's
Dangerous dog.
dangerous.
So dangerous dog. The difference with dangerous dog means a dog that in the absence of provocation attacks, bites, or chases another animal. That's what we changed it to. What they had was attacks, bites, chases, or kills. And we see that the difference between a dangerous dog and a vicious dog is the killing. So a dangerous dog would be someone who attacks, bites, or chases another animal, okay? Or one that has been previously found by any court to be a dangerous dog. Vicious dog means a dog that, in the absence of provocation, inflicts bodily injury to a person. Now we go back up here, and bites, to me, would be bodily injury. Yeah.
Is that because it's limited to, so vicious is only if it attacks people versus a dangerous dog would attack other dogs or wildlife or?
He was happy with vicious, which is a dog in the absence of provocation inflicts bodily injury to a person or is involved in a continuous, sustained attack upon a person, not allowing the victim any means of escape regardless of the injury or defensive action, or has previously been found by a court to be a vicious dog. Note, a dog shall not be declared dangerous or vicious if the animal or person that was injured was committing a willful trespass or other tort upon the property or premises occupied by the owner, or was provoking, tormenting, abusing, or assaulting the dog, and can be shown to have in the past provoked, tormented, abused, or assaulted the dog.
Okay, I'm getting lost. What's the question here? Vicious or
The
what-
question
dangerous, or what do we?
Is the two definitions, dangerous and vicious.
Okay, can we say either or? What difference does it make?
It makes a difference to the courts.
Well, I'm not sure what that means.
All I can tell you is the judge said,
If
That
he
we
wants
need
the
to
word
clean it up.
vicious, fine. It's not that much different than dangerous.
well, dangerous, the only difference seems to be actually causing bodily harm.
Well,
Can I bring
again,
up-
if you get back to legal, a lawyer's gonna tear either one of them up. So let's just,
Was his request that we get it down to one?
His request was that, he didn't like the definition of dangerous. He didn't like a dangerous dog, where he thought that a vicious dog is different from a dangerous dog.
So was his request strike dangerous and keep vicious? I think that's Doug's question, is
That's-
what's our end goal?
there you go. That's easy. If that's what we need to do, I'm fine with that.
Could involve the penalties.
Attack,
A dog
bite,
that chases
or
and kills a
chases.
squirrel
vicious and,
versus,
okay, a dangerous dog chases, and we've seen that, where they chases, or another animal. Oh, I see, dangerous dog attacks, bites, or chases or kills another animal.
So
And,
if the judge had a preference, then I think your question gets rephrased as, do we feel we lose anything by dropping the other one?
why don't I run this past the judge and say, these are the two definitions we have, what do you feel we should do?
I thought he's already made his point clear. He wants vicious.
Well, I want him to read through what we've got here, because a dangerous dog might be, in his mind, be different from a vicious dog. Does that sound reasonable?
Like I said, I think if, given that the objective was to address his concerns, I think that's, you've got to have him sign off on it. But I think, to Doug's point, kind of focus down too, because that's one of those conversations that could be a circular conversation, go for 3 hours, and you couldn't be any closer to the end than when you started.
Exactly. And I think he may have a better feel for dangerous and vicious, since he called it out. So I'll run that past the judge. And under, vicious, they said that they're not dangerous or vicious, and then it had 1 through 4. And it was the willful trespass, provoking, tormenting, committing or attempting to commit a crime or any other mitigating circumstances recognized by the Red Lodge City Court. So, in other words, a vicious dog that bites and hurts someone, these are the things that you deserve to be bit for. Right?
Just put that in the ordinance.
Licensing, I don't believe that we changed anything in licensing. The judge did make a suggestion that we not charge a license for a service dog, and it was already in here.
Okay.
So I talked to him last night and said, you know, this is already in there. He goes, oh, okay, good. That the service dogs are not charged. We don't have any comment in here about a companion dog, or what's it called? Not companion, but the one that they have for mental health. So they have to be licensed. And under this one, offenses, it's unlawful for an owner to engage in or to enable a dog to engage in, which we took out, any of the following actions. So I'm gonna read the way it was. It's unlawful for an owner to engage in or to enable a dog to engage in any of the following actions: to keep, shelter, or harbor any dog without the license as required by this article, to keep, shelter, or harbor any dog that is not vaccinated as required by this article, to allow a dog to be off leash when accompanied by a person or at large, unrestrained and not in an enclosure, to fail, to refuse, to pick up and properly dispose of feces deposited by one dog on public or private property. And then we had to add, allow a dog, because it said to disturb the peace. We said to allow a dog to disturb the peace by barking, whining, howling, specifically for a period of 20 minutes or more out of 1 hour. It was for a period of 20 consecutive minutes or more out of 1 hour. And we thought, consecutive, what if it's 20 minutes out of an hour? So every hour the dog barks for 20 minutes. Regardless, it could be, you know, barking for 10 minutes and 1 minute off and another 10 minutes. Yes, agreed, take out consecutive?
That sounds like my neighborhood. You know, everyone's barking.
It was the consecutive minutes. The chief had also mentioned that it's really hard to say consecutive if it skips 1 minute.
I go back to, if those parties sign off on it, then you're good. If they, I think that's staff input on what they thought.
Okay,
I do know, just because my brain was taking a second to catch up, when you were talking about service animals versus emotional support animals or companion animals, that the service animals, I recall the chief saying the definition was, there's a specific task that they do that you can't do, whether it be flipping on a light or detecting traffic. There was some task.
they're actually, I know in real estate, you actually have to have a doctor sign off on a service animal. Very important that they're clearly declared a service animal.
But there was a lot of those getting signed off for
Emotional
which is-
support,
which is why I think he said that their legal definition is what is the task
Task.
that job does.
yes. A service animal does a task. An emotional support animal is exactly that. It's in real estate, a service animal is allowed in a no pets environment, as long as you have a letter from the doctor clearly stating, or whatever the documentation is, clearly stating it's a service animal. Emotional support animal is also a no pets that they are allowed in no pets, but you can't ask why you need the emotional support. In other words, you can't say, I have PST, you know. You can't ask that, but they can be declared by a doctor. But as far as licensing goes, I think service animals, yes, they can be exempt from licensing, but I think emotional support animals It's $10.
I have a question for Rod. Rod, I see a couple dogs in the grocery stores. Are they emotional support, or can they just bring them in?
And we're living in a new world. Dogs are children,
Okay,
and people pack them around as such, and
You
as
don't,
long as they're not, if they're, we
Stop
tend to
and
ignore
walk.
the ones that are carried,
okay,
because they don't get in trouble
right.
versus. the
They won't
ones
pee on the cans.
that- Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a challenge.
Okay,
But what store do you go into now that there's not a dog in that store?
I agree, but I was just made me think
Yeah.
of, what,
For sanitation reasons, we get concerned because,
that's what I was
you know, if
thinking.
they urinate or defecate,
But if
you
they're
know, that
in,
type of thing.
okay, but restaurants do not.
Do not.
Restaurants have to allow a service dog, but that's it.
I'm thinking more of emotional support dogs in the grocery store.
Restaurants won't allow it, yeah.
Mm.
Food's being served, it's a sanitation issue.
Our challenge is losing customers.
Sure.
And staying viable.
Yeah,
We don't encourage it, but we don't
try to ignore it.
try to prohibit it completely. And if the dog is creating a nuisance, then it's asked to leave. But I can tell you from both law enforcement side of it, because I was there, and from a business side of it, people protect their pets more than they protect their children.
I agree.
And it's a touchy situation.
Is part of why we do this, though, the service that a city provides? I think going back to, you know, sometimes a neighbor can go to another neighbor, your dog's barking, or have a conversation, but sometimes they can't. And the service that we provide from a city standpoint is we eliminate the need for those neighbors to have a direct confrontation, or a business owner to, there's like, here's a food in a sanitary environment. I'd like to take the police to take care of it, so I don't upset them, or I don't lose a customer by me telling them no.
It's a third party that can step in. Okay, so this is just about the barking for 20 consecutive minutes or 20 minutes out of every hour. Personally, I think that the problem is the chief had problems with consecutive. Are they supposed to sit there for 20 minutes and time the dog barking? I'll check with Schrock. Okay. This was the odd thing. In 2014, there must have been an incident because we found this crazy. F was what it said is to trespass within fenced areas or interiors of buildings on school grounds. I don't know why on school grounds was added. To trespass within fenced areas or interiors of buildings on school grounds. Wouldn't it be to enter fenced areas or interiors of buildings? I don't know. I don't even know why we have that. If you're trespassing, that's already against the law.
Right.
So, why do we have to have that for dogs? Now, I think what happened here is that somebody wanted to walk their dog on the school grounds. I don't know about entering buildings on the school grounds. But the term was trespass.
I wonder if trespasses, and I have to go back and look at the context, but trespassing is just something you've been informed that you're not wanted and you go anyway. So I may want people, but I don't want dogs, so if you bring your dog, you're trespassing. Does that fit into that situation? Rod, am I correct on the trespassing understanding?
But you don't have to be notified to be trespassing.
Does it have to
You
be,
can trespass on property without there being notification. That came out in the court,
On the corner crossings and stuff?
well, on our property where the police department arrested a, individual that was intoxicated in their vehicle, and they got off on the trespass part of it, because, I mean, that was a part of it, because trespass, you don't have to be notified. They made a big deal out of it. And so I suspect that came from people walking their dogs on the football practice field up behind the Civic Center. And that created issues with people not picking up after their dogs. It's probably where that came from.
Yeah, 'cause what it said is to trespass within fenced areas or interiors of buildings on school grounds. So I don't know, we had changed it to enter fenced areas or interiors of buildings.
Essentially, I think for the most part, trespass, like at the grocery store, would be, you're asked to leave and you refuse to. Then you'd be charged with trespass. We don't have anything on the front door that
There's no trespass.
says no trespassing, but
Or no dogs, or no,
like if you're requested to leave the premises and you refuse, you'll be charged with trespass.
Because you don't want a sign that says no trespassing in a place you want people to walk into.
But if you've been notified that you're trespassing,
Yeah,
that you must
okay.
leave, that you must leave, now you're trespassing.
Yeah.
Now, so, but it's
I
a tough one that people think that, well, you didn't have a sign up, so I'm not trespassing. It's like, no, you were asked to leave. Your refusal to leave
create trespassing. And I just don't see why we have this one on here at all. To trespass within fenced areas or interiors of buildings on school grounds. Do we need that?
I don't think so.
I mean, there's no sign that says no trespassing. Just because it's a fenced area, if it's not posted,
I think it stems back to people walking their dogs on the practice fields. It'd be the same as if they walked them up on the soccer fields or in the park. It's a matter of picking up after their animals.
and we have the
From
pickup.
the time that the original ordinance was written, and now, we grew up where your dog stayed in the car or
Yeah.
stayed home, and now the dog goes everywhere. And it's just, society has changed its rules as to what's acceptable.
Well, then I'm just gonna get rid of this because it's really odd. And trespassing is trespassing and covered. Okay, G was to allow a dog to damage public or private property not belonging to the owner. H was to neglect or engage in cruelty to animals as provided, we had by this article, and we changed it to current MCA statutes, because neglecting and engaging in cruelty of animals is covered by Montana.
go back to the public property one that you said, say that again?
To allow a dog to damage public or private property not belonging to the owner. I don't think we need not belonging to the owner. I think it's
Well, no,
public.
and I think that's all you need. I think you get rid of public or private, and just say to damage property not owned by the owner. If you're trying to get it down fewer words, but.
Yeah. Okay, and the other one was the damaged, was the cruelty to animals. We just didn't do it by this article, which is what it used to say, and we just said current MCA statutes. If they change them, we don't wanna, it's covered. Cruelty to animals is covered, and neglect. So, and another one, the I is to allow a dog that has been deemed by any court in any state to be a dangerous / vicious dog. We put the slash in there. It was a dangerous dog, and we did dangerous / vicious dog to be at large, unrestrained, or outside of an enclosure. And then the last one was to allow a dog to attack, bite, or chase a person, vicious dog, other animal, dangerous dog, or passing vehicle. And all that, that's the difference that they put. This was the old one. See, the problem was, it read, it's unlawful for an owner to engage in any of the following actions. And that's where we kept adding, to allow a dog to attack, bite, or chase a person, vicious dog, or other animal, dangerous dog, or passing vehicle. We okay with that?
I'm fine.
Yeah,
Penalties and fines, I don't believe that we, changed anything, except again on A, is weird. It says, penalties and fines for nonviolent misbehavior, which is at large, outside of enclosure, barking, whining, or howling, feces, off-leash, damage to property, no license, no vaccination. And there's that trespass within fenced areas or interiors of buildings and school grounds. They threw that in there again. And I'm gonna zap it, because it's just, trespass is trespass.
All right.
And then first offense, the Red Lodge PD shall inquire whether the dog owner and complainant have communicated and attempted to reach a resolution. An educational pamphlet, which I hope the chief has, about responsible dog ownership shall be provided to the dog owner. RLPD shall issue both a verbal and written warning. 1 week shall be allowed for compliance. If the offense involves rabies vaccinations and/or licensing, the owner must secure such within 2 business days and request that the city clerk report such to RLPD. If this condition is not met, the RLPD shall issue a prompt citation, and the matter shall rise to a second offense status. The second offense, if after 2 weeks the offense continues, the RLPD shall issue a citation to the dog owner pursuant to resolution. Yeah. And then third offense, if after 72 hours of the issuance of a second or subsequent citation, any offenses continue, the RLPD shall issue additional citations pursuant to resolution. Really, we're gonna let them go 3 times and just keep giving them a citation? And then under penalties and fines for damage to property, any offense, the RLPD shall issue a citation pursuant to resolution. Penalties and fines for violent behavior. Due to the nature of such offenses, warnings are deemed to be inappropriate. First offense, RLPD shall issue a prompt citation pursuant to resolution. Second offense, RLPD shall issue a prompt citation pursuant to resolution and require that the dog be secured solely on the owner's property until a city court hearing. Third subsequent offense, the RLPD may impound the dog and issue a prompt citation pursuant to resolution. Penalties and fines for neglect and cruelty for dogs. I don't know.
If you're looking at me to tell you whether I think they're ready for prime time or not, you already know that answer. All I heard in all that you just read was,
You get a
if
citation.
it's not dangerous, they're going for compliance. If it's dangerous, they're gonna give
Even-
citations.
Well, they said that they would also issue citations.
I think that's where your definition of dangerous and vicious, the vicious dog will be, euthanized immediately. The dangerous dog gets a little more opportunity for repentance.
How did you get to where you, the document that you have in front of you?
This
What was,
is our current ordinance.
okay,
We took our current ordinance and made changes.
so this is changes based on input from the judge primarily to the current ordinance.
Yes, and some from, the chief, especially during for that 20-minute continuous barking.
And does everybody have a copy of that they're looking through, that they can see
I
what's
sent
new
it
or
out with
what's
the
changed?
agenda.
Do you have it, Doug?
It's
or
all
did you
these
see it?
offenses.
I briefed it. I guess the question is, you're talking about fines and penalties. We've got, the rules are in place. Do we see a reason to change that, or are we good with what's in there?
Well, all I did on the penalties and fines is take out that, trespass within fenced areas. That's all, the only
Right.
change I made to it.
All right, so with that in mind, are we comfortable with it, or do you feel more changes are necessary?
I'm not fond of the fact that there's a first offense, a second offense, a third offense. It seems they just keep doing citations. And that's all they ever do.
Has that been a problem in the past?
Not that I'm,
Recollection is that's what what initiated this, is the judge said there was too much ambiguity, or it wasn't clear and easy to enforce.
I will run this past the judge as well, and Chief Schrock on the
I think-
penalties and fines.
I think Schrock needs to give his input on that, because we're talking about his time and resources.
How he can enforce it.
Right.
Okay, I will do that, and that's the end of that. I'm gonna go ahead and fix some of
There's
this.
gotta be something in there about euthanasia resulting in death, or,
I think that's probably covered by state.
oh, okay, that's right. Oh.
What they did have,
Penalties, were they, in the original document, the penalties outlined for each
well, the
offense?
third and subsequent offense for attacked or biting dog is the RLPD may impound the dog and issue a prompt citation pursuant to resolution.
Is that the whole original document? I think, my concern is, at what point do they put the dog down? Whether it's barking too much, chase too many squirrels. You know, that's, society's views on dogs has changed considerably in the last 15, 20 years.
I will go ahead and ask the chief if, you know, where they get their rules. Is there something in state that covers that?
Madam Chair, I noticed that on tonight's meeting, under public health and safety is the ordinance amending the city code, and yet I noticed that I didn't catch when it went out on Friday, but you didn't have that as a discussion item. Is that ready to go just from full council?
The animal control?
No, the police commission.
The police commission was ready to go.
Okay, because that's on for discussion for full council tonight.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't on here, so I just want to make sure you're.
I think that we did it twice here. Okay, so I will have to do that. We have more neglect.
It's gonna take me 5 minutes to start that other meeting up, so.
Okay, well, I think that we're absolutely fine. Is there anything you guys would like to cover?
Doesn't sound like we made much progress.
I think that we did at the beginning of the document, and then we kind of tanked at the end. So I'll run it past, Schrock and the judge before I run it past Dennison.
Well, and we have to go, but it seems to me that we're back at square one. He doesn't like vicious and dangerous, and we're still,
Well, you and I took out kills on a dangerous dog,
yeah.
because a dangerous dog doesn't kill, a vicious dog would. A dangerous dog does chase and attack. I don't know about the bites, and is dangerous only against other animals, and a vicious is against people? That's what I need to ask the judge, and have him look at that and say, how would you change this to make it easier for you to?
I know I wasn't here at the beginning, but I thought that he just wanted it changed to match state law, that there's only one definition for that, not,
He
it's not
did.
like a.
And I didn't see that when I pulled up I'll pull it up
I'll
again.
go look at the MCA to.
Yeah,
at home.
because I think he just wanted it to match MCA, because he said the city is the only one who has two different types of definitions for dogs, and the state just has one.
And
So-
the ultimate goal is that we have an ordinance that police and the judge are comfortable enforcing so that we can
Right.
improve our community.
Yeah, and I think that we use dangerous for a dog attacking an animal.
Right, and his point, if I remember correctly, when we first brought this up, was that there should be, like, at least.
Animal or person, who
Well,
cares?
in the last year, a dog attacked my cat and killed it. That's
Yeah.
vicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's saying, is that there's no difference between a dangerous or a vicious
Yeah,
dog,
so-
it's just one. They're,
Okay.
so whatever the state calls it, I think is what, but double check with him, but I thought that whatever the state called that is
There's
what
some
he
other
wanted to
things
use.
I wanted to check with him too,
Yeah.
so.
Because I know, yeah, I had two dogs try to tear everybody's cat apart too, about 2 years ago.
Okay, well, I think at this point, we're getting ready for the next meeting. So let's call this adjourned, unless anyone has anything else.
Nope.